This week on Virtual Gear 4K, we take a look at a piece of American automotive history with a car that would become an American icon, a car with a lasting legacy that lives on today. We put it through a 10-lap time trial at Road Atlanta and race it against the Sophie AI. This week, we look at the 1958 Chevrolet C1 Corvette. This is Virtual Gear 4K. Under the hood, the 1958 C1 Corvette came with a 283 cubic inch V8 engine that equated to about 4.7 liters. As was common of Chevy at the time, it offered four flavors of the 283 that ranged from 230 horsepower to a fuel-injected 290 horsepower beast. As those of you who race the Corvettes in Gran Turismo 7, this power curve should look pretty familiar. You want to shift this car around 5,500 RPM to be able to take advantage of that low-end torque and that power curve. And that power curve matched with the torque is extremely important here at Road Atlanta with the constant elevation changes. This car is able to handle those much better than the cars in our previous two episodes. As you can see, turn one, we want to keep it in fourth gear as much as possible. Use that torque and power to climb the hill. This car does get squirrely right there at turn three. The S's probably could be a little bit smoother, but I think the speed of this car plus the technology at the time, this car does tend to roll and pitch a lot. That leads to some inconsistencies when exiting the S's. As you see, I lose a bunch of time here. I think a master of this car could easily get it into the 1:33 range, and is pretty self-evident here, I'm no master. We were much slower, well I say much, we were about 0.2 slower, maybe 0.3 slower on our best lap than we were in our optimal, which is not something we normally do. On the back straightaway, we want to of course shift early to take advantage of that power curve. Fourth gear seems to last quite a while, and we do get up to 130 miles per hour, which is about the same speed as the Mercedes-Benz in our first episode. However, we don't have to brake nearly as early. These turns outside of the back straightaway have been smooth. I did shift a little bit later here, going up the hill than I had been. But we're able to make up some time and get a time of 1 minute, 34.893 seconds. We do have an optimal time of 1 minute, 34.610 seconds. And I think a master could really get this into the 33s, but we do end up with a time that puts this car on top of the leaderboard for now. Let's rewind to the 1950s. America was booming post-World War II, and people craved speed, style, and freedom. Enter the Chevrolet Corvette, first introduced in 1953, but it was the 1958 model that really turned heads. The 58 C1 Corvette marked the beginning of significant changes. And we'll get to those changes in here just a minute. As we look at the Sophie AI race, we start in 10th spot, and it doesn't take long for you to really realize that this is a car of its time as we get passed easily by a Lexus. But going back to our time trial, we're able to keep speed in turn one, use the power of the Vette to not get blown away by this Lexus. Again, turn three is going to be an adventure. This entire race, it was an adventure all of the time trial laps. There goes one of my favorite cars, 1970 Chevrolet SS. My mom actually owned a couple of those. The exits of the S's was adventurous, but in the race it wasn't that big a deal. I think it was because we had traffic in front of us, so we couldn't just push it every lap. And let's talk about some of the changes with the C1 Corvette in 1958. This car was designed during the Harley Earl era, and it featured quad headlights for the very first time, a longer body, and those flashy chrome details that just screamed 1950s and 1960s car flair. This was Detroit's answer to a European sports car market, but with a bold American twist. And of course, any car enthusiast knows what the American twist was. Power. Unlimited power. All right, maybe not unlimited, but with a 283 cubic inch power plant under its hood, and as I stated earlier, was very common of Chevy at the time, this car had several engine options depending on what type of transmission you had. Those options ranged from 230 to 270 horsepower with carburetors, and then you had the beast, the 290 horsepower option, the only one of the 4 options that had fuel injection. The other 3 were carbureted. And the beast is what made this car stand out. For 1958, 290 horses was a ton of horsepower in what was essentially a sports car. So again, what was the American twist? Unadulterated power for those long, straight roads in America. And if you think about it, that is what really defined American automobiles from the 50s until the gas crisis of the 1970s was throw more horsepower at it, throw more horsepower at it, more power. And it served Americans well because we have wide open roads that extend for dozens, if not hundreds of miles, where we don't have to worry about compact cities, where we can get out and just be free, be what makes us Americans, and use that horsepower. The body design was equally impressive, with the washboard style hood vents, the chrome trunk spears. The dual headlights weren't just stylish, they gave the Corvette an almost futuristic look. Something that was not common in the 1950s was dual headlights. Everything was just one headlight. The cockpit, it has a pilot-inspired dash with the tachometer in the middle, and it made drivers feel like they were fighter pilots when they were on the open road. It really embodied America's attitude post-World War II, post the Depression, which was only about 25 years earlier. So America had gone from World War I to the Roaring 20s to the Depression of the 30s, and then World War II of the 40s. America had been through a lot, both internally and externally. And in 1958 with the Corvette, that's when America kind of really let her hair down, kind of said, you know what? Let's have fun. Let's build cars for speed. Let's build cars that looked amazing. Some of the best cars ever, in my opinion, are still cars, American cars from the 50s and 60s. They look so great. Today, we have cookie cutter cars. You have the occasional car that looks beautiful, right? But in the 50s and 60s, even the mom and pop grocery getter looked cool. In 1958, with the drastic changes to the C1 Corvette, it stopped being just another car. It became an icon. It defined what an American sports car could be, what it should be. It paved the way for future generations of Corvettes, future generations of American sports cars, and it established performance and style standards that we still see at times today from American sports cars, from American muscle cars. And really, it all started in 1958 when Chevy decided we need to change the Corvette. And they drastically changed the C1 Corvette in 1958 to what you see today. Car enthusiasts and collectors cherish the 1958 for its blend of raw power, elegant design, and historical significance. Again, it wasn't just a car. It became a symbol, an icon of American ingenuity, its desire for power, and the spirit of the open road. In my late teenage years, I had the opportunity and was fortunate enough to drive a 1958 C1 Corvette. My boss at the time had one, and while I did not get to drive it for long, it did start my love affair with Corvettes. As we get ready to start the last lap of our 5-lap race against the Sophie AI, you may have noticed we've climbed from 10th place to 4th place, and we have a Supra and a Porsche within our reach going into the last lap. And while maybe this car may not hit 160 or 180 miles per hour, it can do things like this. Use the power and torque to climb a hill to out-accelerate a Porsche. Now, it is a little unstable at times, like right here in turn 3 can be an adventure. And maybe the S's are not always clean. Thankfully here, the Supra in front of me forces me to slow down a little bit. It does have its faults, like the exit out of the S's can be an adventure. But it's also a Corvette. It is a car, it is an icon that people look at and they recognize right away. There's a reason this car currently sits atop our time trial leaderboard. Between the Porsche, the Mercedes-Benz, and the Corvette just has more, right? Maybe not as smooth as the Porsche, maybe not as stable as the Mercedes-Benz, but again, it's an American car. I want to hear from you guys in the comments. Of the 3 cars that we have covered from the 1950s, the Mercedes-Benz, the Porsche, and the Corvette, which of those 3 was your favorite? But if you watch my streams, it should be no surprise to anybody that the Corvette is my favorite of the 3. Thanks for joining me on this ride along in the C1 Corvette as we discuss its history and its legacy. If you've enjoyed this type of content, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more Gran Turismo 7 content. And would you look at that, not only did we finish second, but we ended up with the fastest lap. Until next time, I want you all to take care of yourselves and each other and have a blessed day.